I would be talking about blasphemy and its status in Muslim world. Quran does not prescribe physical punishment for blasphemy. The stance of present-day Muslim goes totally against the teachings of the Quran. Contemporaries of prophets repeatedly perpetrated the same act, which is now called blasphemy or abuse of the prophet. I'd like to highlight main points. Prophets down the ages have been mocked and abused by their contemporaries. Number two, abuse of prophet is not a subject of punishment. Number three, blasphemy is a subject of peaceful admonishment. In Islam, blasphemy is a subject of intellectual discussion rather than a subject of physical punishment. This concept is very clear in Quran. Quran tells us that since ancient times, God has sent prophets in succession to every town and every community. It says, moreover, that the contemporaries of all these prophets adopted a negative attitude towards them. There are more than 200 verses in the Quran which reveal that the contemporaries of the prophets repeatedly perpetrated the same act, which is now called blasphemy or abuse of the prophet, or using abusive language about the prophet. Prophets down the ages have been mocked, abused by their contemporaries. Some of the epithets cited in the Quran include a liar, a possessed, a fabricator, a foolish man. The Quran mentions these words of abuse used by the Prophet's contemporaries, but nowhere does the Quran prescribe punishment of lashes or death or any other physical punishment. This clearly shows that the abuse of Prophet is not a subject of punishment, but is rather a subject of peaceful admonishment. That is, one who is guilty of abusing the Prophet should not have corporal punishment meted out to him. He should rather be given sound arguments in order to address his mind. In other words, peaceful persuasion should be used to reform the person concerned rather than trying to punish him. Those who adopt a negative stance towards the Prophet will be judged by God. Who knows the innermost recesses of their hearts? The responsibility of the believers is to observe the policy of avoidance and wishing well, convey the message of God to them in such a manner that their minds might be properly addressed. Another important aspect of this matter is that at no point in the Quran is it stated that anyone who uses abusive language about the Prophet should be stopped from doing so, and that in case he continues to do so, should be awarded severe punishment. On the other contrary, the Quran commands the believer not to use abusive language directed against opponents, but do not revile those beings whom they invoke instead of God, lest they in their hostility revile God and out of ignorance. Surah 6, Ayah 108. This verse of Quran makes it plain that it is not the task of the believers to establish media watch offices and hunt for anyone involved in the acts of defamation of the Prophet, and then plan for their killing, whatever the cost. On the contrary, Quran enjoins believers to sedulously refrain from indulging in such acts as may provoke people to retaliate by abusing Islam and the Prophet. This injunction of Quran makes it clear that this responsibility devolves upon the believers rather than holding others responsible and demanding that they be punished. Looked at this from this angle, the stance of present-day Muslim goes totally against the teachings of Quran. Whenever anyone in their judgment commits an act of abuse of Prophet in speech or in writing, they instantly get provoked and respond by leading processions through the streets, which often turn violent. And then they demand that all those who insult Prophet be beheaded.